The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not represent the views of any Grand Lodge nor a pendant body of Freemasonry.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Masonic Shelf Shorts, your monthly dose of Masonic education in 10 minutes or less. My name is Brad Kohanke.
And my name is Chris Williams. And tonight we have a very special guest. He is a past master and the founder of the Masonic Improvement Podcast. Welcome, everyone, Brother Justin Jones.
American Freemasonry has a very bad retention problem. We've all wondered why at some point. However, we've also all seen the reason in action. A potential candidate expresses interest, and he is immediately given a petition. Sometimes he even has all of the required signatures before he even leaves the lodge with his petition in hand, even though it's the first time anyone has met him. If and when he returns, we continue to expedite the process by appointing an investigation committee and meeting with him as soon as possible, while ensuring that degree fees are low enough that he won't even have to take time saving up to pay for them or potentially be scared off by their cost. He gets his degree and then, poof, he's gone. When asked where the new guy went, brothers will shrug helplessly and say things like, he didn't realize there was so much memorization, or he decided he didn't have time, or his wife didn't like Freemasonry, his heart wasn't in it, so on and so forth. At that point, everyone else shrugs helplessly as well, and then turns their sights towards the next potential candidate. And so the cycle continues, while at the same time, older brothers pass away or become physically unable to attend lodge anymore, and this happens faster than the lodge can attract and retain new members. The issue is that we rush so many things that our experience often feels more like that of a nameless piece on an assembly line, when it should be more comparable to the slow and intentional work of a master craftsman. Once a man becomes a Freemason, he will be one the rest of his life, in most cases. Why rush the most transformative part of his Masonic journey? This is where slowing down the process comes into play. I will now explain how we can slow that down. How we can slow down our petitioning and investigation processes. I've already explained previously what the petitioning process looks like for the majority of lodges. Let's look at how to correct it. First and foremost, bringing a man to the lodge and showing him around the lodge room while explaining everything in a great amount of detail. As soon as he shows interest or shows the slightest interest at all in the fraternity, does more harm than good. We've got to stop this. This will be a hard pill to swallow for many brothers who have adopted a preconceived notion that transparency is a great thing. There's no data for this. In fact, based on the number of men we fail to retain, the evidence actually indicates that this does far more harm than good. This also assumes that you have established a reliable means of communication for potential members of your lodge before we move on. Meaning, if somebody reaches out to your lodge, then somebody will consistently respond within 24 hours at the max. If this isn't the case, I recommend you correct that before moving on. Instead, what we should do once a man expresses an interest is to check any and all social media profiles that he has. You're paying attention to the type of content that he creates and the quality of posts that he shares. Ask yourself, is this Facebook profile a good representation of the type of man we want in our lodge? To be clear, we're looking for signs of things like racism, intolerance, drama, or any other kind of behavior that is not conducive to Freemasonry. If it looks good, then go ahead and communicate with him over his chosen medium and begin asking probing questions. If he emails your lodge, then email him back with probing questions about his interest. Do the same thing if he messages your lodge Facebook page, gives you a call, so on and so forth. This serves multiple purposes. First, it helps to weed out mental instabilities or people that might otherwise do harm. Secondly, you start to understand what he is looking for out of Freemasonry. And thirdly, you begin to learn his story, who he says he is, and what his personality is like. Let's examine this further. There are many people who have very misguided thoughts on who we are and what we do as Freemasons. We know this, yet we let anybody that shows interest into our sacred spaces and hope for the best. Simply put, this is a security issue. That said, it's never really a problem until suddenly it is. Then it's a big problem. Thirdly, personalities and egos can quickly kill the healthiest lodge. Anybody with a toxic personality can come across as a functionally healthy adult for a few meetings. However, as time goes by and he becomes more comfortable with you in conversation, it'll be harder and harder for him to maintain the facade. If you begin to notice changes in his personality or inconsistencies in his stories after a few emails or conversations, then that should be a huge red flag to stop the process right there. There's no hard number or timeline at this point. However, after you've spoken a few times and no red flags have presented themselves, then it's time to move to the next step, which is meeting somewhere in public, such as a pub, coffee shop, or cafe, restaurant, something like that. When you do meet with him in public, be sure to ask probing questions and allow him to do most of the talking. Remember that the ultimate purpose of this process is to get to know him and determine if he's a good fit for your lodge. Be sure to ask questions that you've asked before in previous conversations because his answers may still reveal further insight, or they may change altogether. If you notice drastic changes or inconsistencies in his answers, then be wary. Meet with him once or twice in this manner, and then begin bringing brothers with you to these meetings. Be sure that they understand the purpose of these meetings and that both you continue to ask open-ended, probing questions. After each meeting, ask the brothers that attended what their thoughts and opinions are. If there are no concerns and everyone is agreeable, then continue meeting with him and introduce him to different brothers, a different one each time, and one at a time, a few more times. Once he has met with 3 brothers and everyone is in agreement that you should move forward with the process, then it's time to bring him to lodge. Keep in mind, ultimately, that this is the first time that he has stepped foot into the lodge up to this point, ideally. You may have noticed that this process is much slower, and the interactions so far have been very intentional. The first time he is invited to the lodge, it should be during a practice night or similar activity. This allows him to meet with and visit with the core members of your lodge without everyone scrambling to prepare for a meeting or tell him that he has to leave after 30 minutes the first time he sets foot in the lodge. That said, after he has met with the core members of the lodge a few times and everyone approves of him, then it's time to begin inviting him to your meeting nights. I recommend that he attend the meeting nights for a minimum of 6 months. Many of you have probably raised your eyebrows at this point, but yes, I meant 6 months. Do that before you even consider giving him a petition. Yes, that applies to all potential candidates, regardless of the relations, regardless of the friendships, all potential candidates. Men benefit from Freemasonry by associating with their lodge. The lodge benefits from brothers by their attendance. It's a two-way street. What's the point or benefit to any of the parties involved when you confer the first degree and he disappears within a month of his expressing interest? A man may claim that he's interested. He may promise that he has plenty of time for the brotherhood. He could even say that his wife and family are on board with his joining. But tell a man that he's expected to visit for 6 months before he receives a petition, and you'll see very quickly how true those statements are. This also builds anticipation and buy-in. The gentleman will be excited for the day that he is voted to receive the degrees, and the amount of time that he has committed to the brotherhood thus far will make him reconsider quitting as soon as the going gets tough. One more thing. I used the word invited intentionally when I wrote about his visiting the lodge. His return to the lodge should be intentional and should never go without saying. If it's decided at some point that he's not a good fit for the lodge, or his facade that he put on fell apart after 3 months, and he simply no longer shows interest, then he no longer gets an invitation. You can send him a polite letter telling him that the lodge has decided not to move forward with the process at this point, if you like. I lean away from that, but it's ultimately up to the lodge. Think of the impact the slowing down the process will have on Freemasonry in your lodge, your district, region, and jurisdiction after a few Masonic generations. Our focus will shift once again from the external to the internal. We will attract and retain good men who want to improve themselves because that is what we do right by reputation and by result. We will once again deliver what we promise. Thank you.